take a look at the headlines. But let's start off with the Standard, which has how China is feeding off poor Africa. That's the headline on the Standard this morning. How China is feeding off poor Africa. Zinzi.
Thank you so much, Michael. Of course, this being a Thursday, our panel consumes of Ambrose Weda. He is an advocate here in Nairobi. Honorable Kembi Gitura, the immediate former senator to Murang'a County. And on my far left, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kira, deputy party leader to ANC party. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to have you here this morning. The Standard newspaper, how China is feeding off poor Africa. A number of African states, in terms of the amount, have been mentioned there. Angola being the highest with 4.28 trillion Kenyan shillings in how much it owes China in terms of debt. Kenya is number 3 on this list at 980 billion Kenyan shillings. Grab a copy of your Standard newspaper this morning. This is where we choose to highlight everything. Of course, Zambia, we've been seeing what has been happening. They've taken over the energy company, the one that is specifically responsible for electricity in Zambia. It has caused a lot of conversation, especially online. I also remember reading somewhere that they also plan to take the broadcasting channel itself in Zambia. Honorable Kipruto Arap Kira, I'd love to begin with you with this specific one. Take a look at this country. The countries that I mentioned: Angola, DRC, Ghana, Nigeria, Sudan, Republic of Congo. A lot of these countries are rich in natural resources. There's no reason for these countries, let alone to be in debt, but to go out and seek for loans so huge. Angola, which is a country full of minerals, at the highest at 4.28 trillion Kenyan shillings. Is it that here in Africa, honestly, we have a problem when it comes to mismanagement and leadership?
Yes, I think squarely it's a problem of leadership. Because leadership is the most important ingredient in terms of combination of resources. You can have all other resources, but if leadership is wanting, then you are likely not to achieve a lot. And also the issue of corruption. Remember, the daughter of the former president is the richest woman in Africa.
Dos Santos.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the age of about 40. And this therefore means that a lot of resources must have been stashed out of the country. And also the oil industry in Angola has suffered the same. So what we need to do is that as Africans, we need to spend more time looking on how we can mobilize our own internal resources.
Right.
For example, here in Kenya, the main problem, we may have the external debt, we may have the internal debt which we borrow from institutions, but the most important one is bending bills. The government owes to the tune of 500 billion. Kenyans who have done work, and for the last 2 or 3 years, they have not been paid. And this is a debt that nobody is identifying, but almost every year we do a budget, but that budget does not capture effectively some of those bending bills. And that allows some of these funny lenders, because I think China is more of a Shylock than a lending institution. Because they say we don't have conditions, but there are conditions, they will take the national resources of a country.
Honorable Kembi, you're laughing. Do you feel the same way about China?
It's actually a very difficult situation. I largely agree with my colleague, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kira. You see, these days, you can borrow online. Just use your phone. I think there's a star hash something, and you get some money instantly. They tell you there are no conditions, but only a fool would believe there are no conditions. And if you then default, there is a way that they're going to recover the money from you.
Right.
I don't know how they'll do, whether they'll do it online. So the problem is, when the deal is too good, I think you need to think again about it. Where there are no conditions and all those things. Because I've been reading lately, and I'm happy that the Standard has come with such a bold headline, that China has taken over a port in Sri Lanka, something like that.
And also Zambia.
And Zambia. Now, for me, that sends very cold shivers down my spine. Because it means literally that we are mortgaging countries. I can mortgage my piece of land in my 2 acres in Murang'a. Yeah, and I know that the auctioneer will come for it. And people must understand that in theory it's the same. The same way I can mortgage my small little 2 acres in Murang'a, and then the bank will come after me with a bill and sell it to Eda. is the same way that a country can be mortgaged.
Do you think our leaders understand that? With the ones who signed this MOUs?
I'm certain we have some of the some very elitist people in Treasury and in Central Bank. So I'm sure they know these things. Now, when you hear a port has been taken, I don't know whether they're taking it as a lease for 99 years until they recover their money, or they are taking it as a colony, as their own possession forever, because then we need to start fearing. We need to start thinking what it is that we are doing. We need then, in this case, to think about how we can reschedule these mortgages or these loans. Yeah? So we reschedule them maybe with a traditional, people that we've dealt with before, so that we know exactly what is in it, and so that we can read the small line in this mortgage document or borrowing document. Because if, for instance, just for instance, if my father left for me an acre of land in Muranga, you see that land, I hold it in trust because I didn't buy it. I hold it in trust for myself and my children and the generations to come to follow. If I borrow money on that 1 acre or 2 acres in Muranga for no good reason, maybe just to be ostentatious, and then that land goes under the hammer, I owe it to my children and the children of my children, all of them, because then I have betrayed them.
Exactly.
Isn't it? Because I have betrayed them, because that was not my land. Now, this land that we call, that is Kenya, it doesn't belong to any one of us. It belongs to all of us.
And that leads me to my next question.
This land belongs to all of us.
Right.
And if we make a mistake of mortgaging it, then when we are gone, because we are not here forever, not for too long after this, then of course we need to worry, because people might want to ask, like I'm sure they're asking Sri Lanka, what happened to our port? Yeah? Why is it that now it belongs to other people, and history books tell us that this land was ours? So these are questions that we have to answer. They may look simplistic, but they are issues that have to be dealt with, and they have to be dealt with much sooner than later.
I mean, whether the Honorable Kembi brings out a good point, which I want to attach to. When I love it when you said the aspect that, and you gave an example with the story that you've just given with your land and children as an example. Because that's what's happening to the African continent in general. 60% of the African population belongs to people that are under the age of 25. We may not be feeling this debt right now, but it's our children's children who will then come and pay for this debt. They will never forgive us. Whether.
I think let's not be emotional about this. I look at the headline and I see emotions. You see the aggressor, the thief, now crying for emotions. Oh, China is finishing us. When we go for these loans, we go for them with clear eyes and mind and dignitaries, and they say, take it, pay us back. I've not heard any country, these countries you're mentioning, where China has changed the deals and then now forced itself. It is like in a bank. You go and they tell you, if you pay us as agreed, then there's no problem. If you do not pay, then these are the consequences. So instead of trying to blame China, let us blame our leaders. You know why man was created? In the good book, it says, God did not allow rain to fall and anything to grow on the earth because there was no man to manage. Our role is to manage. Chinese leaders are managing their countries so well. So they have bounty, they have extra trillion. Our leaders are stealing everything. So we are broke. So what do? We go for easy cash from them without strings attached, but they tell you, we will come for a pound of flesh if you default.
It's a question of mismanagement of our resources and leadership.
We should focus on our leaders. When our port is taken, we should be asking our leaders, what happened? We should not be saying, oh, China, now what are you doing to us? Look at the SGR, a very good project. And the Chinese are there saying, if you don't pay us, we will take it over. But then when you look inside, you find that a third of the cost was stolen during land compensation. Stolen, not in the business. If you borrow money to open a kiosk and you use half of the loan to buy clothes and buy a good car, then the kiosk will not be able to pay the loan. And then if the owner of the loan says, I will come to run the kiosk, when he comes to run the kiosk, you now don't say, hallelujah, so our leaders should take responsibility. If you go to Namibia, if you go to Zambia, the leaders should take responsibility. Then as they take, the people take responsibility. As we continue to vote for these leaders on the basis of tribe, on the basis of party and not on the basis of competence and promise, we must expect the Chinese to do this even to us in Kenya. The day I vote for Kembi on the basis of competence, it will work. But if I vote for him because he's a fellow Kikuyu, then the problems are there.
You need to look at page 4 and page 5 of the newspaper this morning. We also highlight the three presidents in terms of revenues and expenditures since Moi's regime right now all the way to President Uhuru Kenyatta. We even go deeper by talking about the major projects funded in China. Of course, Angola having a majority. Kenya is there, and our Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway has taken the top notch with about 327 billion Kenyan shillings. Honorable Kembi, you say that this is just too good to be true. Like when you take a loan, a very simple from if you dial star etc, it's just too good to be true. There's always something behind it that comes with that loan. Is it too late for African countries?
No, it isn't. You see, the SGR is a very, very important development in my own estimation. And SGR is going to be there as long as we can maintain it. SGR is going to be there and it's going to help our economy to grow. It's also going to save a lot of road accidents. And when they say they are going to build the 6-lane highway to Mombasa from Nairobi, funded by the Americans, I welcome it, if it is within our means. The only thing you should never do is to borrow outside your means. Right. And you should never borrow money to eat. You must borrow money so that you use it in such a way that it will repay itself, not that you pay from your pocket. I think why these things are becoming so important for discussion now is that if it is true that 30% of budget goes to corruption in Kenya, how much money are we talking about? Is it part of the borrowed money? Because the borrowed money is in the budget. Is it out of money that we have worked hard and earned as a nation? When money goes to corruption, and you can see it is actually going to corruption as we are watching, and then we read headlines like this, the risk that we stand, then it is like borrowing money to consume, not to produce. Because you borrow money so that you can have a startup factory or something, so that you can start a school and make money and help other people. That's why you borrow money. But if you borrow money to eat that loan, literally eat food, or to give to your friends, or to buy your girlfriend's things, then you are a foolish person. And so the fear that comes is some of the money that we are borrowing ending up in corruption cartels? Is it ending up in people's pockets? Because then we will be a laughing stock. So I think those are the issues that when you find Kenyans and newspapers coming with headlines like this, they are sensitizing people on the danger of borrowing to consume.
And on the issue of corruption tied in with loans, gentlemen, have a listen to this school of thought. And I quote, "Let us get one thing clear on the China loans and why Africa politicians are madly in love. Due to legislation, American and the EU companies cannot bribe